Joining us today for today's webinar, P-EBT Deep Dive, Highlights from Approved State Plans. My name is Kelsey Boone, and I am a Child Nutrition Policy Analyst at the Food Research and Action Center. During today's webinar, state agency representatives from Arizona and Rhode Island will share details about their recently approved plans to issue P-EBT benefits to school-age children, as well as children under 6. Before we hear from them, my colleague Jerry Henchy and I are going to give a quick update on P-EBT for the 2020-2021 school year. Next slide. P-EBT was created through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act in March of 2020. The program provides an EBT card to children who are missing school meals due to school closures and virtual instruction. In the continuing resolution passed this fall, Congress extended and expanded P-EBT for the 2020-2021 school year, and at the end of January, the USDA released guidance on how states can implement P-EBT this school year. This expansion included the ability for states to issue benefits to children under the age of 6 whose households participate in SNAP and live in or attend childcare in an area where one or more schools or childcare facilities are closed or operating with reduced attendance or hours. To implement P-EBT for school-age children and children in childcare, states must submit a detailed plan on how they will issue benefits to eligible children and families. Many states have approved plans, and many more are in the process of creating their plans. Next slide. As of March 31st, 28 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico have been approved to issue benefits for the 2020-2021 school year. 6 of those states have plans for children under 6 that live in SNAP households. We have created a map on our webpage that links to all the approved states' P-EBT web pages, so partners can get detailed information of how P-EBT will work in their state and state-specific outreach materials. For states that do not have approved plans, we hope today's speakers will share insights that will help you move forward with your plan. USDA has also started posting each state's approved plan on its website. We have also linked to each state's plans on this slide, and we'll be sure to send the slides around in the webinar's follow-up email along with the webinar recording. Next slide. As far as eligibility for the program for school-age children, a child who would be eligible for free or reduced price school meals if the National School Lunch Program were operating normally and is unable to access these meals because school is closed or has been operating with reduced attendance or hours for at least 5 consecutive days in the current school year, is eligible to receive the benefit. This includes children who are enrolled in a community eligibility school that provides all students with free meals through the National School Lunch Program. Families become eligible during the school year, given changing circumstances, are able to receive benefits. They must submit a free or reduced price school meals application to their school district and be approved in order to get the benefit. If students are fully virtual, they will receive benefits for all school days they are virtual. If they participate in a hybrid model, they will receive a lower benefit based off of the days that they were virtual. Next slide. In January, the Biden administration increased the daily benefit value to $6.82 per full school day. This is a 16% increase compared to last year. States are calculating the total monthly benefit amount based off school calendars. Fully virtual students will receive the maximum state benefit, while hybrid students will receive a partial benefit. These benefit levels will vary by state given their schedules and other considerations. Next slide. To receive the benefit, children must be approved to receive free and reduced price meals through the National School Lunch Program. In many cases, this means that families must fill out a school meals application with their district to get approved. We know that many school districts have not been collecting applications this year since they have been offering free school meals to all through the summer nutrition program. To spread the word and encourage families to fill out these applications, FRAC has created customizable infographics that you can tailor and share with partners and families. We have these infographics available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Amharic, and Chinese located at the link in the slide. Next slide. Before I turn it over to Jerry to discuss P-EBT for children under 6, I do want to highlight a few resources FRAC has developed to help with this round of implementation, including a piece on strategies states can implement to ensure they reach all eligible students, including foster children, homeless youth, and immigrant and migrant students. We also have quite a few communications resources, including a toolkit, customizable outreach materials, and have also updated our shared communications resources drive with materials approved states have been putting out this school year. And now I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jerry Henchy, for a quick update on P-EBT for children under 6.
Jerry, you're muted. Can you please unmute?
Thank you. Thanks, Kelsey. So I'm happy to be here today to be part of this important deep dive webinar, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the states who have done such a good job and are taking time out of their busy schedule to share with all of us. So I'm going to talk about the basics pretty quickly about P-EBT for children under 6 and then some new resources that we have. So first of all, if we think about who can participate in P-EBT under 6, it's all children under 6 who are in households that receive SNAP anytime since October 1, 2020 are eligible to receive the P-EBT benefits if they live in or attend childcare in an area where one or more schools or childcare facilities are closed or operating with reduced attendance or hours. So one of the key things here to emphasize is that the base of the children who can participate are the children who are on SNAP. And that's important for explaining it to other people as well. So next slide. If we think about guidance for states, we really need to think about the fact that USDA gave actually a really clear template. They just set up the basic questions that had to be answered by the states. And so it's very clear what has to be answered and what doesn't, and it's all set up. So thank you to USDA for doing that in the guidance. So if we turn to the next slide, please. So some of the things that should be included in the P-EBT state plans, they need to be tailored to the needs of the families in the particular state that the plan is for. USDA and FNS have provided a template, as I said, for states to assist in the development of these state plans. And this is the link to that template that I was talking about, and it really does make it easier. So if we go to the next slide, one of the things that we really are focusing on is the fact that for P-EBT for children under 6, the simplifying assumptions are absolutely key to the state plans because you can define these areas with these broad-based simplifying assumptions. And here are 2 of those. One of them is using a statewide mandate for all childcare. So this is Massachusetts. This is what they put exactly into their plan. There was a statewide mandate that all childcare providers reduce attendance and hours, which met the minimum 5 consecutive days of closure or reduced attendance or hours threshold. So that's the explanation, and that's the simplifying assumption. It's very broad. Not all states have that. So for example, Arizona, which did not have that kind of across the board kind of mandate. What they did was what I've listed here. So, and you're going to hear more details about that from them. They said if there is at least one school in a county that is closed or doing distance learning, then all SNAP enrolled children under 6 residing in that county are eligible for P-EBT benefits. So these are how these simplified assumptions are structured without going into too much detail. This is the key to making it easy to administer and to reach as many children as possible. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that we just finished a guide, and it's very clear and it's simple and it's to the point, and it was done by Nancy Chang and Katie Jacobs on our staff. And basically what it does is it goes through the simplifying assumptions. It's super clear. It works within each template of each state for childcare that's done this so far. And so if you are working to help someone do a state plan or you're doing a state plan, this is the easy guide for you. Just go right in there and see which simplifying assumptions and how they answered it, what would suit your state, and you can just use their language because it's parsed out just exactly like you would need to do it within the USDA template. So if we move to the next slide, another resource, and I'm coming to a close of my comments, is the Hunt Institute has this resource. This resource tells you what has been the history and the current status of any statewide mandates or the status of statewide closures or special rules. And this is an example of what they have to say about California, childcare closure status, and it goes through to explain, you know, what Governor Newsom said. And so this is an example of how this works. So if you're wondering in your state, if you have something like this, you can look this up in the Hunt Institute report, or you can simply ask the Child Care Subsidy Agency or ask the state CCR&R, Child Care Reason Referral, and they can help you to understand what these rules are. So if we go to the last slide, this is just an overview of the P-EBT for children under 6, the newer resources that go together with what Kelsey was talking about as the broader set of resources on the FRAC website. So we have this brief guide, and then we've also broken it out into particular states. We did that because it could be in your state, you know, you like a particular model and think it would suit your state best, and that's what you want to share with people who might be working on the plan or who are auxiliary to the process so that they can see what you think is the best practice model for your state. And then we do have general guidance that talks about P-EBT for children under 6 on the website as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelsey so we can get to hear our wonderful speakers today. Kelsey?
Thanks, Jerry. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Ernest Baca is the EBT BA Manager from the Arizona Department of Economic Security, and Bethany Caputo is the SNAP Administrator from the Rhode Island Department of Human Services. So Ernest, you have the floor.
Hey, terrific. Thank you, Kelsey. So as Kelsey was saying, I'm the EBT Manager here at the state of Arizona. I've got 21 years of experience in state service, and I helped develop the Pbt state plans for both last year and this year, which also includes child care. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the child care portion of Pbt. I'm happy to report that our first payments went out on March 18th, covering the month of October. I'm going to talk about considerations for the overlapped kids between child care and the NSLP school children, talk a little bit about Pbt cards, and then finally foster children. So as you know, several spending bills recently passed over the last few months that have included pandemic Pbt continuations into their legislation for the 2021 school year and beyond. And Arizona has been able to accommodate both child care and school children in our state plan. There's approximately about 130,000 additional children that will be helped by implementation of the child care part of the plan. We're currently tracking about 18,000 overlap kids between populations of child care and school age children, mainly due to pre-K programs. So as was said earlier, they must be receiving SNAP and under 6 as of October 1st, 2020, and the Secretary is going to deem SNAP children under 6 enrolled in child care. And as was said earlier, what really makes this work is that eligible children must live in, at least in Arizona, we took the stance that they must live in the area of a closed or reduced hours school. And in Arizona defined in the area at the county level, there must be at least one closed or reduced hours school in the child's county where they live. And currently Arizona has 15 counties, and children living in those counties will need to have at least one designated school provided to us by our Department of Education partners that meets criteria in order to qualify for payment. Child care, it's important to note, only is issued from October through the end of the program. It doesn't start in August like the school children. Arizona has established 3 statewide monthly benefit levels, full, partial, and none, based on the designated school's predominant learning model. We feel that's a simpler way to administer audit, and we have consistency across schools and families throughout the state. The first issuance went pretty well. We reached 130,000 children in the month of October. We sent initial letters to those families letting them know about the program and the benefit. Some lessons learned from last year was to send those at least one notice to the SNAP cases so those families were aware of the program. For this month, we'll be tracking, again, about 18,000 kids that overlap between the child care and the school kids to make sure they don't get double paid when we start paying it to school children. Moving on to Pbt cards, we will be issuing Pbt only cards to only new cases, Pbt cases this year, but we will be sending everyone a notice and letter to explain the process for ordering a new card or to expect a new one if we're mailing it. Notices are really going to drive the Pbt process this year. We hope by doing it this way we can get the most families spending faster with the cards they already have. In a lot of our outreach, we've tried to encourage families to hang on to their EBT cards, and of course the SNAP clients will have their EBT cards. So we're hopeful that you know, as soon as we issue payments this month, quite a few families will be able to start purchasing food. Talking a little bit about foster children, some lessons learned from last year on foster cases. We're going to be issuing Pbt to the foster children in their name on the card. That way they'll be able to, as they move placements, they'll be able to take the card with them, and it should ease the administrative burden quite a bit, as this vulnerable population has a tendency to change placement settings quite often. Some other considerations with the Pbt program, our governor recently ordered that all kids to go back to in-person learning this month, so Pbt may be greatly reduced in Arizona for April and May. I'm very hopeful that the summer version, assuming the emergency is still in place, may make up for some of these potential lost months. We do have some tribal jurisdictions in Arizona that are not subject to the executive order, so we'll be looking forward to being able to take care of them for April and May. Another consideration, we've been in close communication with our State Grocers Association. We've been trying to keep retailers in the loop to prevent possible food shortages at the markets. So far, it hasn't been a problem, but it is definitely a consideration. We know we had the federal stimulus last year, which you know, provided quite a bit of benefit to folks, and we didn't really see any shortages. We anticipate issuance this month is going to be fairly significant. It'll actually be larger than our normal SNAP issuance for the month. So, you know, we're definitely keeping them in the loop to try to make sure they have at least a heads up and maybe, you know, order adequate stocking of their store shelves so everybody can have plenty to do when they do have their funds to go make purchases. Those are kind of the highlights of the Pbt program for 2021 in Arizona. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the program, and I'll give it back to you, Kelsey.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Bethany's presentation next. So Bethany?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bethany Caputo. I'm the staff administrator at the Rhode Island Department of Human Services, and I'll be providing some information about our experiences with P-EBT today. Next slide, please. The first area I'm going to cover is how we are addressing P-EBT for school-age children for the current school year. Next slide. Our plan to issue P-EBT benefits for school-age children this school year was approved by FNS on December 28th of 2020. Benefits have been issued to eligible school-age children participating in SNAP, as well as those not participating in SNAP, who have temporarily lost access to free or reduced price school meals due to their schools being closed or operating at reduced attendance or hours as a result of the pandemic. Our plan utilized simplifying assumptions to establish an average amount of qualifying days for children attending school on a hybrid schedule. We looked at the average number of days students were learning virtually each month throughout the state and determined a standard monthly benefit based on 11 days of P-EBT eligibility each month. Students attending school entirely virtually receive a monthly benefit amount based on the number of days schools are in session each month, which can vary from month to month, accounting for holidays and vacation days. We also sought out the services of United Way 211 to provide a central telephone number for recipients to call if they have questions or issues in order to avoid overwhelming our DHS call center. Next slide, please. Rather than requiring individuals to submit applications for the benefit, we took advantage of our existing data sharing agreement with the Rhode Island Department of Education, also known as RIDE, that we use to perform our direct certification matches for school meal eligibility. RIDE reached out to the schools in Rhode Island and asked them to provide a list of NSLP eligible children, along with the number of days the students are learning virtually each month. RIDE then sends DHS a complete file with this information, and we match that file with school-age children active on SNAP in our eligibility system. Those that match are eligible for P-EBT as SNAP recipients, and those that do not match are eligible for P-EBT as non-SNAP recipients. And then the demographic information is sent to our EBT processor via our usual method, file transfer, but separate from our regular monthly issuance. RIDE also reached out to the private schools that participate in NSLP to provide the necessary data for their students. So private school students were included as well. Next slide, please. The amount of benefits each child receives equals to the daily reimbursement rate for free breakfast and lunch in Rhode Island, multiplied by the number of days the student was learning virtually each month. So hybrid students, as I said, receive benefits based on 11 days of virtually learning, or $75.02 right now. And the fully virtual students receive benefits based on the number of school days in session each month, according to the Rhode Island Public School calendar. Our first issuance went out at the end of January 2021, and it covered the retroactive period of October 2020 to December 2020. Ongoing benefits are issued at the end of the second week of each month for the previous month. Providing the benefits retroactively allows us to account for any significant changes to school schedules and revise our plan with FNS if needed. Benefits have been going out to approximately 69,000 school children each month. SNAP recipients receive their P-EBT benefits on their current EBT card, and non-SNAP recipients have their benefits added to their existing P-EBT card if they have one, if they were receiving benefits in the last school year, or they're mailed a new P-EBT card if they're newly eligible. Next slide, please. We have faced some challenges along the way that we're working to mitigate. One such challenge is return mail due to an outdated address that was provided to the school. This was more of an issue last spring when we were issuing every non-SNAP recipient a new Pbt card, but we're still encountering the issue on a smaller scale with this round of benefits for those who are newly eligible. We receive address information from the schools, and we've found that the parents don't consistently update their address with their child's school. To attempt to mitigate this issue, we receive a returned mail file from our EBT processor, and we query these individuals in our eligibility system to see if we have any more up-to-date address information available where we can resend the card. If none is available, unfortunately, we have to wait for the parent to reach out to us to provide an updated address. Another challenge is the increased call volume. Although we are partnering with United Way 211 to take phone calls, and that has helped to reduce the volume of calls coming to our DHS call center, we do still receive quite a bit of calls at DHS, and as does the Department of Education. 211 receives about 80 to 90 inquiries per day, and many of those are repeat callers. They track every call in a spreadsheet, which is provided to DHS at the end of the day, and the calls need to be researched and followed up upon by our EBT coordinator. When we rolled out, the primary responsibility for handling P-EBT-related issues fell on our EBT coordinator, who's also responsible for her regular EBT-related duties. This caused a backlog of inquiries that needed to be addressed and resolved. We've since allocated additional resources to P-EBT and hired some temporary staff to help resolve the backlog more expeditiously. And we're hoping that this will help prevent those repeat calls from coming in. Next slide. And another issue is the lack of updated data from schools. One of the main reasons for the high volume of calls is that the initial data that was provided by the schools had missing, incomplete, or inaccurate information. Our initial plan was to use the NSLP eligibility data from the current school year, but we found that the schools did not have updated records and/or were not including students previously eligible. So we pivoted to using September eligibility information while accounting for newly eligible individuals and removing those who graduated or moved out of state. Additionally, we're still seeing some issues with schools providing their eligibility list late and requiring retroactive issuances of benefits or not properly documenting the learning mode of the students on their files. Next slide. I'll now give an overview of our Pvebt plan for children in child care settings, or otherwise known as children under age 6 receiving SNAP benefits. Next slide. Our Pvebt child care plan was approved by FNS on March 22nd, which was fairly recently, so implementation of this plan is still in the works. To determine the eligible population, we simply needed to query our eligibility system for SNAP eligible children under age 6 and not receiving Pbt benefits as a school-age child. We decided to use operating status as a basis for eligibility, school operating status as a basis for eligibility rather than the operational status of child care facilities. All schools in Rhode Island have been operating in some capacity at reduced attendance or hours since October 1st, with students in every school in some sort of hybrid schedule. Therefore, we were able to assume that all SNAP eligible children under age 6 are residing in an area where one or more schools have been operating at reduced attendance or hours. We use the monthly data for school-age children to support this assumption and to determine the benefit level for this population. Since no child care centers in Rhode Island were fully closed since October, we will be utilizing the approved hybrid standard amount used for school-age children, 11 days of eligibility each month, and apply that to children deemed to be enrolled in child care. Next slide, please. As I previously stated, we'll be issuing a standard benefit amount for all children under 6, equivalent to the daily reimbursement rate for free breakfast and lunch in Rhode Island, multiplied by 11 days each month, which comes out to $75.02 per month per child. The EBT benefit type used will be the same that we used for school-age children. Our first issuance will be a retroactive issuance to cover the period of October through March, and we're hoping to get that issuance out by the 3rd week in April, but the timeline is still under discussion at this time. Ongoing, we plan to issue the monthly benefits in the 4th week of each month for the previous month. The decision to issue retroactively will help us to account for any changes in the operational status of schools, as FNS requires us to review that every 2 months. And the benefits will be added to the household's current EBT card if they are a SNAP participant in this scenario, and we estimate around 15,000 children will receive these benefits. Next slide. We're taking several approaches to communicate the availability of these benefits. we'll be sending a mailing to all SNAP households with eligible children that has information about the benefits, the benefit amount, and the phone number for them to call with any questions. We'll be posting information on our social media pages and our website. We'll also be sending an email to community partners and providing updates during our SNAP advocate meetings. And United Way 211 will continue to take calls, answer questions, and provide information for DHS for any necessary follow-up required. Next slide. Thank you for the opportunity to share our plans with you. Feel free to reach out to me via the email on the screen if you have any questions that I can help you with that you haven't asked today.
All right, next slide, please. So we have a few minutes left for questions. If you want to enter them in the Q&A box now. If we don't get to your question, or if you have a state-specific question, we can follow up with you individually after the webinar. I'm just going to read a few of the questions, and if any of our panelists have an answer, please just chime in. So for Arizona or both states, can you please describe how the USDA has determined 0 to 5 children's P-EBT eligibility with respect to SNAP enrollment? Active SNAP case during first issuance, inactive at first issuance, but active between October 1st and first issuance, and SNAP enrollment for families that come off or on SNAP after the first issuance.
This is Bethany. The guidance that I received is that they have to be active SNAP recipients as of the date of the first issuance in order to be eligible for the benefits, both the first issuance and the retroactive issuance.
Okay. Another question was, if a school responded to parents that enrollment in reduced lunch meals are not taking place at the present time due to COVID, how does the parent report that a school is not accepting reduced price lunch applications? Does anyone have an answer for that one? The schools that are not accepting reduced price lunch applications.
Yeah, I think this is Arizona. I think that would be a coordination between the Department of Education and their state and the local school.
Okay. Very helpful.
Yeah, in Rhode Island, we just used the previous school year's eligibility information to deem them eligible for this school year as allowed by FNS, regardless of whether they submitted an application this school year.
Okay. So there's a question, I think, for Arizona. You talked about a difference with areas dealing with tribal regulations. Do you know what they are?
Right. So the governor ordered kids back to school, but he doesn't have jurisdiction over some of our tribal-run schools. So, you know, there's potentially going to be some schools in those areas that'll still be attending in April and May.
Let's see. So, as part of your plans, how do they address how P-EBT will adjust as schools phase back into in-person learning, either fully or with a hybrid model?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
This is Ernest from Arizona again. Yeah, we work closely with our Department of Education, and they've got a tool which local schools are submitting their learning plan and their learning plan changes, and we also believe by paying retroactively that those are going to be fairly solid by the time we get the data to pay out the benefits.
Okay.
Same response, basically, for Rhode Island. We're relying on our Department of Education to share that information with us, and that is why we issue benefits retroactively, so we have time to react to any major changes in the school schedules.
Sorry about that. Let's see. So did Rhode Island have special considerations for issuing benefits to foster or homeless students?
Foster students would be incorporated in the process of matching in the files that we receive from the Department of Education and RIDE. The homeless participants, we didn't really consider homelessness as a factor when we issued these benefits, but we realized that there's probably a barrier to receiving a Pbt card in the mail or having an up-to-date address. So we're relying on those households to, unfortunately, to reach out to us or United Way 211 with information on how to reach them.
Okay. All right. So there are a few state-specific questions that I will follow up with after the call. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So I just want to really quickly draw attention to our next two webinars: Ensuring Homeless Youth Access to P-EBT on April 13th at 2 p.m. with Schoolhouse Connection, and our next P-EBT Deep Dive webinar, Ensuring Foster Children Receive P-EBT Benefits, on April 21st at 2 p.m. with Fostering Families. And over the next few weeks, we'll be adding more P-EBT Deep Dive webinars, so keep checking the FRAC events page for those links. I want to thank both of our speakers, as well as Jerry. And these slides will go out with all of the links included in them. So we will send everyone who's registered the slide deck. Once again, thank you for attending, and thank you to both of our speakers today. Have a wonderful day, everyone.